Hello, everyone. This is your class for business design, and this is the first lecture. We're going to talk about the legal responsibilities of an interior designer. Before we can talk about the legal responsibilities, I want to introduce to you two types of legal system, or the most common two types of legal system. One is common law system, another is a civil law system. Common law system is the countries that's mostly practice common law are United States, United Kingdom, and many other English-speaking countries mostly, and some of the countries that's in the Commonwealth, such like Singapore, Malaysia, India, Canada, many of those countries. So that's mostly where the common law is practiced. And the civil law system are practiced by a lot of countries are from Europe, from the continent of Europe. Let's say France is one of them, and it's probably where the modern civil law system originated, because it's commonly also referred to as Napoleon law. And the way that made it to Qatar, because Qatar is a civil law system, the way it made it to Qatar is because it went from France to Egypt, and then that's why Qatar adopted the civil law system rather than the common law system. So in a way, if you studied law in UK, you may find yourself having difficulty to practice in Qatar, because Qatar is having a different legal system. Beyond that, Qatar is also a Muslim country, so it practices Sharia law. In Sharia law, so countries would, that's where the tradition that's mostly practiced, like marriage, divorce possibly, and who should have a right to inherit, and all of those family related matters that's probably still governed by Sharia law. The legal responsibility that mostly related to an interior designer is probably the civil law that is mostly related to interior practice rather than the criminal law. But do not confuse civil law, criminal law with civil law or civil law system and common law system, because that's worldwide how the legal system works. The criminal and the civil law is just two parts of the practice, depends on what is needed. If anyone committed the crime, then you would end up in the in the criminal court, and otherwise it's probably the legal procedures are dealt by civil court. So either you have a common law or civil law, you always have the criminal court or the civil court. And most interior design practice, or hopefully we would never end up in a criminal court. Most of the issues can be dealt with the civil court, and oftentimes even before you goes to the court, even with some potential lawsuit, oftentimes people will settle without the court, and before going to the court, there are many different ways, either to some kind of a negotiation, or maybe just use arbitration. So arbitration is so much cheaper than going to, having the full course of the legal system serving you and going to the court. If someone can find a proper arbitrator, then you do not need to use the court system, and it would normally be cheaper. And what I want you to think about it is, how would the country doing business together if they're under different legal law system, legal system? What are the conflicts, or what are the solutions? Would companies behave differently in different country because of the legal system? Or if there's ever a lawsuit, which legal system are we going to adopt to? And also, what are the most famous legal or lawsuit involved with interior designers? How often interior designers are sued? By who? Is it by a client? Is it by a contractor? Is it by a business partner? You know, there are many ways a company can be sued. They're common. They're common legal involvement of an interior designer, which oftentimes divided into two parts. One is unintentional, one is intentional. Of course, if we all just want to be in the unintentional category, you never really wanted to combined with some kind of intentional towards it's just something unfair causes for someone to suffer, for someone to suffer some kind of a loss or harm. So that's called a tort, T-O-R-T, which is basically in both legal system, in common law or in civil law, you always have a tort, which is under the civil court. So anyway, coming to this unintentional and intentional, the unintentional often includes negligence. So people are not aware what they're doing, and they probably neglected and didn't pay attention to certain responsibilities. That's negligence. And intentional is rather more serious. If anyone, any designer which can get involved with defamation or invasion of privacy, which is actually probably one of the common ones, because oftentimes designer will take a photo after you finish the project, and sometimes designer do not ask permission from the client to publish their photo. The photo of their private space, and then maybe it's end up in the internet, on the internet, and then you might get a lawsuit because you invaded someone's privacy. That is actually intentional, even that you might think, oh, I have not intentionally done that, but that is under an intentional tort. So so be careful about all of the practice, and also read about the stories that or any famous case that involves interior designer in a lawsuit or in some kind of legal troubles at any different level. A company can be sued, or a member of company can be sued, or a client can sue the designer, or designer can also sue the client, or a supplier can sue the designer, and designer may also sue the supplier. So there are many legal cases that could happen to any interior design companies. So think about anything that's intrigue you, and this is one of the area that you could consider to do a research. The most fundamental thing is it is interesting to you, something that's intriguing that you want to spend a little bit of time and do a case study about it. So if you have any other question about the case study, please come on Wednesday and ask me in person, or otherwise just go ahead and do your work, and I will see you next Monday. Have a good week.